From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped. I'm Alison Mitchell in Manchester. This week with me is Jim Maxwell for the ABC, who's in Sydney, and Charu Sharma for Akashvani is in Pondicherry. Now, the world of cricket has been somewhat divided this week after South Africa's Wiaan Mulder remarkably passed up the opportunity to break Brian Lara's record for the highest individual score in a test innings, which stands at 400. Now, Mulder was captaining South Africa for the first time and reached 367 not out at lunch on the second day of the second test against Zimbabwe in Bulawayo, at which point he declared the innings. Now, the Proteas were 626 for 5 at the time, with Mulder just 33 runs short of that record that Lara scored for West Indies against England back in 2004 in Antigua. So what did Mulder have to say at the end of that innings? Because everyone was intrigued. He said, well, firstly, I thought we had enough and we needed to bowl. Secondly, he said, Brian Lara is a legend. Let's be real. He got 400 against England. And for someone of that stature to keep that record is pretty special. He went on to say, I think if I get the chance again, I'd probably do the same thing. Jim and Charu, I'm intrigued as to what your reaction was to him doing that, and indeed whether you were following the match and what you were thinking, gosh, he's getting near the target. What is he going to do? What did you think about, what he ultimately did?
Very respectful. I was impressed with what he did. He's quite right. He's no legend, even though he may have been one if he got to 401. So, no, I think he was selfless, and he viewed the game as all captains should. First ambition is to win it, right? What's the point of batting on? They got over 600. And I think he respected the integrity of the game in the best possible way. So I hope that other people see what he did and recall it if they ever get into a situation like that. Because unless you're Subman Gill or Travis Head or someone, I don't think you should be trying to pinch records like that, with all due respect to Zimbabwe's bowling.
Go on, Charu, what's your take?
Well, I'll pick up where Jim left off, because the last thing I want to do is disrespect the opposition that he got runs against. And for me, that's a bit of a key here, because you don't really want to be the man who gets 400 and odd against, and I have to say this again, I mean no disrespect, against a lesser nation. Imagine getting 400 and odd against some other, nation that's just about started playing test match cricket. That would be just very self-serving. So I think Mulder did exactly the right thing. Huge respect, because he was just, a few blows away and you've gotten the 400. But it's not just Lara. Anybody getting a record against a big test-playing nation, that's the key, really, of getting a new world record. So I'm all for it. I think he's the level of respect he showed towards Test match cricket, a record, and Lara as well, was phenomenal. Well done, Mulder.
There's not too many players, though, that are running around knocking off 300 against Zimbabwe. He still scored 300 odd, no matter who the opposition. That still takes some doing, doesn't it? Why not carry on and get the 400? No one else has scored 400 against Zimbabwe.
Well, Matthew Hayden got 380 against them 20 years ago, and it was as easy as pie to score those runs. I remember at the time thinking, he's not going to break that record. Surely not. And thank goodness he got out. With all due respect to Matthew Hayden.
He probably would have thought, well, if I'd carried on and got the record, I'm sure he wasn't trying to get out at that point. He wasn't thinking about, who the opposition was. He just wanted the runs.
He was taking a few risks against that left-arm spinner Price, I remember. And are all these runs going to be scored against Zimbabwe, Ireland and Afghanistan in future when people are chasing records? If they get close, I hope they pull out and declare.
It made me think, Jim and Charu, so if this was the Trent Bridge test and it was Zimbabwe and it was, Joe Root, who is already a sort of legendary batter, and he was getting close to the target, do you think anyone would have gone, but it was 400 against Zimbabwe if say, someone like Joe Root had got there? Is it because Wiaan Mulder is sort of very humble in himself? He's like, well, I'm no Brian Lara, but actually say it was Joe Root against Zimbabwe, he could comfortably do it?
Well, I'd be very surprised if anybody such as Root or anyone else does it against a lesser nation, just for the record, because that would just be a little not classy enough for me. But very quickly, it's people are not going to remember, are in the future not likely to remember this particular test match result of South Africa versus Zimbabwe. but they'll forever remember that somebody broke an individual, one of the big bragging rights of world cricket. So, to think about the team and the situation, I remember Rahul Dravid did a long time back when, unfortunately, the supporters of Sachin Tendulkar were so upset when they declared when he was 194 against Pakistan. They said, well, let him get the double. So I think in certain parts of the world, people are very hung up on figures and on records and centuries and so on and so forth. And in other parts of the world, thankfully, they're not. I say once again, quite brilliant for him to not go on to 400.
Yeah, you wonder whether the words of Shukri Conrad, the South Africa coach, had an impact on him, because apparently he was speaking to Mulder and he kind of said, well, listen, let the legends keep the really big scores. Which again comes back to my point as to whether if it was another player who already sort of had legendary status no matter what the opposition, would they have gone on to clock up that score no matter who the opposition is. But Jim, take us back to 1998 in Australia, because there's a bit of a story around Mark Taylor, isn't there, in a slightly similar way?
Yes, he got to 334 at stumps on the second day on a highway in Peshawar. And he rang...
captain, of course.
He was a captain, yeah. So I remember the last ball of the day, he mashed to the onside, and Ijaz Ahmed, who hadn't fielded very well, stopped it from going for four, which would have meant if had it done so, he would have gone past Bradman's score at that point, which was the highest by an Australian in Test cricket. But he dwelt on it and spoke to the Prime Minister, and yeah, I think he made a good decision. And there's 3 days left in the game, and he wanted to win it. They were 1-0 up in the series. As it turned out, the road laboured on, and he batted again, and I think he got 86 in the second innings. So he's up there with Shubman Gill and making a pile of runs for the match. I think to this day, most Australians and Taylor himself felt he made the right call at the time because it was more important to win rather than break records.
Yeah, and I guess, Charlie, when you look at Mulder, I mean, perhaps what makes his decision even more extraordinary is that, he's not exactly a player who, is a big name in the team regularly making centuries, and he might not ever be in that position again of scoring a big triple.
Yeah, well, this is only his third three-figure score, so you might imagine that he would have gone on and created a world record for himself, not never to be erased, but he would have been in the sight of every cricket fan around the world for very long. Maybe he'll be encouraged to score more as he goes along. I just want to quickly ask Jim, Taylor went on to 337 equal and then, of course, didn't carry on. Why would Matty Hayden not have had the same thought when he was going on to his 380?
He was scoring faster. So
okay.
He may have been taking a bit more.
Couldn't stop himself.
he may have been taking a few more risks. As it turned out in that game, Australia won pretty comfortably in Perth. So I really don't think, Charu, a lot of people remember the fact that Matthew Hayden made 380. I would think more people will remember the fact that Gary Sober scored 365. But there you are. Someone's going to do it one day. We know that. It's the rate they're scoring now in cricket. I reckon it's certain to happen. It might be Joe Root in a Baz Ball excitement, and it could be in this Test at Lords. Who knows?
I think they would have to score fast, because I don't think Test batters these days, other than Mulder, have got the stickability to play such long innings. Even if they're scoring fast, I just feel like they're getting out much quicker these days. But Mulder did break a number of other records, even if it wasn't the Lara one. So he became only the second South Africa player after Hashim Amla to score a triple hundred, so beating Amla's 311. And you know what? He said he did it all while singing the Cranberries song Zombie to himself. So that just made me think, if you were both at the crease, or indeed, I don't know what goes through your head while you're recording Stumped with us every week, what would be your song of choice to keep you in the zone?
Ooh.
We even gave you advance warning of this.
I don't know. Here comes that rainy day feeling again. That's what I get sometimes.
You're just thinking of Old Trafford in the Ashes, aren't you, in 2023?
I'm still thinking about that because there was so much grief in England and this ludicrous talk about the moral victory that England had at Old Trafford. And that's all very well,
easily.
But they're not playing there in the next Ashes series, so they'll have to wait a little bit longer to try and get back at Australia.
Charu, any song that goes through your head at vital moments?
You did give us some advance warning, and I forgot about it till right now. Now my head's reeling because there's so many numbers that one could sort of, by the way, apparently Virendra Sehwag used to keep whistling some song or the other when getting to those 300s as well. But considering my current state and, just getting into the zone, perhaps one of my favorites, Pink Floyd and Comfortably Numb.
Oh, right. Comfortably numb. Okay. Well, do you remember Mitchell Johnson, when he was getting all sorts of grief for bowling to the left and bowling to the right by England's Barmy Army? He would go back to the end of his mark and have the Frozen song in his mind. Let it go, let it go, just to, get it all out of his head. Which
And
means
you, Alison?
for us, it is time to say goodbye, because
very good.
that is all we've got time for on Stump this week. So thank you to Jim Maxwell, Charu Sharma, and to all of you for watching and listening, and we'll see you again next week. Till then, bye-bye.